So I think first, thank you for being here. This is our first podcast as a team, as Sean and I, and we're really grateful to all of those who are listening. This is definitely out of my comfort zone. Typically, I am a very private person. I don't utilize a personal Instagram or Facebook page. So this is definitely going to share a whole new side of vulnerability that I'm not quite used to. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I think we've done a lot over these 8 years, and this is definitely a new chapter for us. Every time we do something new, we definitely learn from it, make mistakes, but we do adapt, improve, and move forward in the best direction. So I'm excited about this podcast. I'm excited for you, the listeners, to be out there. I think we have a lot to offer. We are very private people, as Diana mentioned. We have grown a local construction firm from one person, being Diana, to now 42. We've also at the same time have 4 kids that are 5 and under. And so those two aspects are pretty unique and dynamic. And I think that it speaks to us as people, and also to, I think it's exciting for y'all to learn about how we did that, because a lot of people ask us about how we're even able to do one of those two things, much less both. And so in this podcast, you're going to learn about construction. You're going to learn about our leadership style. You're going to learn about our family. You're going to learn about how kind of where we've started and where we've gotten to and where the future is.
So this podcast will be an outlet for honest conversations about growth, culture, what it takes to run a construction company, what it looks like to run our family as well, celebrating victories, which I'm used to doing just with Sean, but celebrating victories as a group, lessons from the field, business challenges, insights, and just rooting everything in transparency, laughter, and a people mindset first.
Yeah, and I'd like to expand on that. I think that even though this is specifically for a construction company, there's a lot to learn. Whether you have a business out there, you want to start a business, or you have a family, or you want to start a family, there are a lot of lessons learned that we've learned that I think anybody listening can take away that learning and not have to go through that learning curve. Because we started from literally just an idea to now an established company, an established family, and routines with processes where we can be really true visionaries and managers versus being the grind. And I think regardless of where you're at in your career or your company or your family, there's a lot to take away from us.
Yeah, and I think something that people will learn very quickly is how routine and regimented we are, because there is a lot going on in our life, in our personal and professional life. And they'll realize very quickly that routine is kind of at the core of that. And some people find it to be extreme, but it's how everything runs, and actually how we wake up and happily run everything every day, because we have a very wonderful life. And I feel super fulfilled and very grateful.
But that doesn't mean we're boring. Let's be clear. We have an exciting, fun life. Yes, we are routined, but there's a lot more than just the routine and the monogamy of what we go through every day.
So in each episode, we're going to do the same thing a few times, just so everybody gets used to what the episode content will be like. We're going to do rapid fire questions, monthly lessons, and then also a family segment, because like Sean said, whenever we talk about business, family is obviously a part of the whole life, and it's always a part of the conversation as well. So we think that is really important.
Great. So let's kick it off. Diana, give us a background of yourself before you founded Skelly Build.
Okay, so let's take it back to 18 years old. I'm now 35. Which, is fine to share, because everybody always asks me how old I am. And I'm like, I'm 35. And I'm happy to be 35. But background before founding the company. So started UT when I was 18. I met Sean the very first day I started at University of Texas. And we met at a frat party. These are all very common questions that I get. And it was nothing interesting. We met at a frat party and quickly developed our relationship after that, and dated throughout most of college. He did break up with me one time, and then we got back together, but dated throughout most of college, had a really great college experience. I majored in public relations, and then Sean can talk a little bit about what he did too, but I majored in public relations from the communications school. And then after that, I went and worked for a company where it was primarily fundraising, and then I focused on events for nonprofits. After that, I went and worked for a title company in Austin and had a marketing role there, which I really enjoyed. Super social, got to meet a lot of new people. It was really a great job for that age in my life. And then I realized I kind of wanted something more challenging for me. And I entered into the construction field and worked for another local Austin builder for a few years. And Sean and I, as I was working there, had a lot of conversations about entrepreneurship and what that would look like. And Sean really always encouraged me to push myself more. I learned a lot at the company that I was at, but it was just like a natural good time to start something new. So I worked there for about 3 years, and then Skelly Build was founded almost 9 years ago, January of 9 years ago.
2017.
January of 2017. And I went in with the attitude of wanting to create a company that was client forward and people forward, because construction obviously can be a very rigid and inflexible business. There's a lot of established construction companies in Austin. There's a big market for construction companies in Austin, but I was really encouraged to do something fresh and new that was really client forward, process oriented, communication oriented. Of course, there's the basics of course, quality, good craftsmanship, anything that you expect in a construction company. So Sean wants to say something.
Can I ask some questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. What was the moment you realized you wanted to own your own construction company?
I definitely always had an entrepreneurial, I guess, attitude.
When did that start?
That started at birth.
Okay. Give us an example of that before the construction company.
I always think I think grit is something that is just in my body and something that I was born with, but also something that's developed in a big way. And I think I always have had a really self-starter attitude. And, after college and throughout college, always the first one to, take a dive into projects, or always the first one to try and make things better, super solution oriented, just not status quo. So I think for Sean, and I'll flip the question back to you, but when did you first realize that I should be an entrepreneur? Because I know there was a moment in your mind.
Yeah, so the moment I fell in love with my wife was she was at the event company, and they were doing a event for the opening of the new freeway, Highway 130 or something like that in Austin. And she was like 22, 23, just out of college. She was definitely the lowest on the totem pole there. They worked a lot of hours. And at this event, an event there's 1,000 things going on for an event, right? You have all the vendors, you have all the details coming together. You've prepped for a couple months, and you have everything to be executed at one time. And at any event, things happen. And she was the newest person at the company, but she stepped up, took charge. She was telling everybody what to do. All the problems were coming to her, and she was executing in such a unique way with unique solutions that I had never seen anybody do that. And so that was the moment where I thought, this is a boss babe for sure.
Boss babe.
I'm going to hook my hitch to this one. But no, didn't in high school you did door-to-door sales of something?
Yeah, I think I always started off with tiny entrepreneurial spirit things. I collected nuts from my backyard and sold them. And then I also am decently creative, so I would watercolor paint cards and sell them to all of my neighbors for handmade Christmas cards. But it's always been inside of me. And definitely my parents always encouraged me to be or do whatever I wanted to do. And I never really saw the differences between men versus women in that way, which I think is a huge gift and definitely something that we will instill in our children.
I think that's an interesting segue because you did enter a male dominated field. So, what was that like? Was there any issues you encountered? How'd you push through that kind of typical mindset?
Yeah. I think naturally I'm definitely a very confident person, but being in a super male dominated field, I definitely in the beginning felt the need to prove my worth and prove that I should be there because typically in this industry, and especially then 9, 10, 11, 12 years ago, you're surrounded only by men and you're lucky to be surrounded by one woman at that point and you're really seeking out other women. But I it took me a long time to prove myself, and that's what I say about a lot of women in this industry is unfortunately it takes us a lot more to prove ourselves. We have to study more, we have to communicate better, we have to be more empathetic with our clients. Just have to unfortunately have to be better and do better than if we were coming in possibly as a man. So I think there in the beginning is a strong sense of needing to prove ourselves in the room. And then maybe there's a lot of, could be overcompensation. Like I definitely think I overcompensated and had to correct that too. But now, now I don't have to prove myself anymore. And I'm just in the room and people do see me as an expert, which is nice. But unfortunately, in the beginning, you do have to prove yourself in this industry and make room for yourself.
So going back to, you 2017 by yourself. So talk about building a business with limited resources and wearing so many different hats and juggling responsibilities and money and clients and subs, and kind of give us a rundown of what it was like in the beginning.
Well, just like most entrepreneurs in the early years, it was me. So I was selling, managing jobs, coordinating trades, handling selections, walking job sites, communication with clients, trying to figure out best technology practices, really trying to figure out all the best practices because I had all of that knowledge from the last construction company, but I did want to do things differently. And I did start fresh. So do everything. I mean, cleaning job sites, doing a lot of things that I'm definitely not strong at. Financials, that's not one of my strengths. So doing a lot of things that you're not strong at and learning as you go in certain areas, which is just an entrepreneurial spirit, I think. But obviously, the farther you get, the more you learn. It's who, not how. And it's about hiring the right people to manage those part of the processes that you're not good at. And one of my very first business coaches, which I still tell people now, she told me to write a list of things that I really enjoy doing and I'm good at doing and things that I'm not as good at doing and I don't enjoy doing. And it just was a really tangible way to see, okay, these are the things that I need to hire for when I'm ready. Because I'm not as efficient at these things. I'm not as good. I'm not as internally motivated to do these things. So I'm not going to do them as good as somebody who is.
So do you remember what was on that list?
Accounting. I think site management I think I was good at it, but it wasn't something that I preferred to do.
Yeah.
I definitely can do it, but it's not something I preferred to do. Material ordering. Those were the top 3. Or maybe can you? It
sounds like you
more?
Just like sales then.
Yeah, probably.
So what I remember from back then is when you start over a construction business from scratch, you have to start over with subs. And I remember that, you got some small jobs, small now, but they were big to you then.
Yeah.
And finding the right subs was really hard. And it started with, just finding the demo crew and the framing crew. And I can remember you had subs not show up. You had subs do terrible work. You had, so talk, do you remember any of those instances on just the difficulties with subs? I've got some examples.
I know some examples too. I remember one specific job where I had to hire, I think, 4 tilers for one job. And the tile wasn't just in the bathrooms only. It was all the flooring throughout the entire house. So every day I would walk in to check the quality of work, and every day I was unhappy with all these certain tilers. So I think a big challenge in the beginning too is starting a business. I think you do have to go in with the mindset of there's going to be a lot of mistakes made, and those mistakes are going to be costly, but ultimately you do have to build a reputation with trust in the beginning. So you're, of course, hiding a lot of those costs, and not, well, you are absorbing a lot of those costs as the business owner because you're working to build client trust and client reputation. So behind the scenes, they know nothing about all these 4 different tilers that are on one job. But you can talk through the process of tile installation, and they can say they're going to do this process, but until they actually get in the room and install the tile, then you actually see their quality of work. And I think I had to learn really quickly. I already had a confidence in myself, but I had to learn really quickly to have a lot more confidence in myself. And they realized quickly that I was like super no bullshit. And I would fire people from the job. I would give them 1 or 2 opportunities to fix it. I'm not horrible in that way. I would give them 1 or 2 opportunities to fix it. And then if they wouldn't, they would not, they would be let go of the job. And I think that takes a lot of confidence because you could just have them finish the job and maybe do a less than quality job, but it was really important to me that that wasn't how the craftsmanship ended.
Yeah, it's tough to be by yourself at a job. You don't have good subs that you can rely on. The money is whatever you can get, but you're having to pay out.
Slim.
You're having to buy more materials because they're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You're having to find new subcontractors through other subcontractors.
Yeah.
Did you ever think like it wasn't going to work, or did you never even have that thought?
I'm sure there were nights that I came home that I felt very defeated, but no, I never actually thought that it wasn't going to work. I mean, I like construction. I like the tangibility of it. I like seeing new things every day. It's fun to see new things installed. The people aspect of construction is fun and challenging if you don't have the right subcontractors. And that's why we're really serious about the subs we hire now, of course. I don't know. Was there ever a moment where I was just this is done?
No, I never heard it. That's why I'm asking.
No, I think both of us have built a mindset where we can have a really, really horrible day, sleep, wake up the next day and say, totally, totally new day. We'll create a solution for that.
Yeah,
that's just life.
I agree. I think that's part of being an entrepreneur and having a family. I mean, days are tough. Challenges are super hard, but I think our mindset has always been so optimistic, or at least that we know we'll get to the solution. And I do remember back then you'd kind of have these tough days, but then you'd have a bounce back, whether it was a new job or a good sub or something. And so it did come kind of in waves of up and down, but the ups always got higher. And the downs, I guess,
we learned from.
Yeah, we learned from, and we never made that mistake again.
I think one of the things that we've been really, really good with for like at least 10 years is celebrating wins. And that's something that I encourage every entrepreneur to do. And they can be really small wins, but actually celebrating them. Like for us now, it's of course like, coordinating a babysitter, going on a date, something like that, but really celebrating your wins, because if you just focus so much on the negatives, then you don't wake up positive every day because they can be all consuming. They're not for us, but I think we do a really good job of celebrating our victories.
We do. I mean, I remember, golly, probably 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, in our team meetings, you instituted that everybody talk about a victory in the last week. And so for the last 7+ years, everyone at our team meeting will go through victories and do thank yous. And construction is very hard, and it was very hard back then. And so you have to have that optimism and that positive mindset, because that's the only way you're going to get through it. So I thank you for that perspective, because I think everybody needs it, and to focus on the positive is really how we get through it and get better.
Yeah, mindset's important. Okay, moving on to you. So why did you join Skelly Build?
Is that where we're starting? Okay.
Yeah.
I joined the company because I knew that finance was not your strong suit, and I was on site with you, and subs were asking you for money, and I was willing to help and write the checks, but I couldn't find any logs of who we gave money to, how much we gave them to, and I think you told me it was just like in your
No, no,
head
no. For the record, I did have it written down on a piece of paper.
that we couldn't find or something. And so what I thought I could do is just help with the money inflow and outflow. And so I literally started with just an Excel, and I obviously wasn't getting paid. I was willing to just help. And so I started an Excel of each job, how much money was coming in, how much money we had spent. And then we got more sophisticated, and we broke it up into cost codes, and we broke it up into subs. And so over time, that Excel has grown into a very sophisticated process, but we'll get into that. So I joined just out of concern for the money because, not that this is all about money, but it's just like there was no organization around it that I felt like there was an easy way. My background is an accountant. I did get my master's in accounting from the University of Texas. I've never actually worked for a public company or a big accounting firm. I went into finance after college, but when I was there, I was willing to help and do anything, and it seems like that was the easiest place to start, was just tracking the money and making sure that, subs were accountable for what they were getting paid. And, in the construction world, you may have a bunch of money you owe subs, but you pay them over 4 or 5 draws. And so what did you pay them? What check did they lose? What check did they cash, right? There is a big system that needs to be established there. And so that's why I joined, was just to manage the actual money of the company.
It was important. Thank you. What early challenges did you see behind the scenes?
Yeah, so, our construction company is different because most construction companies are started by the technician, somebody who has been a project manager in the past, or maybe they worked for their dad, or they were a trim carpenter or something, and they thought they could take on the whole thing, which is your case. You did that. You worked for a construction company, you thought you could do it differently and better and had new ideas, and so you established it. Why we're different is because of, I think, I saw that you did it your way, which was great. But if we wanted to create a family, if we wanted to have work-life balance, we needed to take how you did things and put it into a model. And so the challenge I saw was, how do we recreate a successful process but not depend on you? And if we could do that, we could create a successful company, but then B, have a family together and have a work-life balance. So to me, the number one challenge was, how do I get Diana out of the business more and replicate this great process that she's established?
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thank you for being there.
Of course.
Okay. What is your perspective on our partnership dynamic, especially as the company has grown?
Our partnership dynamic has morphed over time, for sure. And in the beginning, obviously, you were the only one. And then I came in and didn't really know much about construction, kind of saw it through your eyes and started with the finances. Obviously, I'm more of an expert in finances than you are. And so that was easy for me to just say, hey, look, this is how we should do it. And you obviously didn't push back. As I got more familiar with the business and got more involved in the operations, I definitely my opinions grew and got stronger. And so there was lots of times where we were in the room with 3 or 4 employees around and we disagreed. And it was an argument that obviously every couple knows, but obviously our employees would see too. And so we learned really quickly to kind of what is our lane and stay in our lane, or at least I did, because, we did live together after the workday too. And so we had to morph the personal life with the professional life. At the beginning, I think my opinions were probably too strong. And so I learned to kind of find my lane and stick to it. If I wanted to, sometimes, if I wanted a happy wife, happy life type deal at home. So What
Yeah.
about you? What's your perspective on our partnership dynamic as time has evolved?
I agree with you on our partnership dynamic. I do think some of the biggest lessons learned are that we're both very strong, opinionated people. Some would use like the word alpha or dominant. In our disc profiles, we both have large D's, and I have some other letters. You just have a large
I have a
D.
D, yes, and an I.
So that's a dominant profile. And in the beginning, my role was CEO for 7 years, right? So I did feel like my opinion was what mattered most. Although moving through the course of time, now with maturity, I very much understand that other people's opinions can now sway me and they can even actually be better than my opinions. And that's with our dynamic and everybody else in the company, of course. But I think that just comes with maturity and wanting what's best for the company fully, because in the beginning, you think what you want is best for the company. So our dynamic was a lot of that, like push and pull, because we didn't know that we really just needed to focus on our strengths. So each of us has strengths, and they're actually very different strengths. And so when we stay in those lanes, then it's really successful. And I do think that we've learned that when one of us has a strong opinion on something, the other one needs to listen. And that's always something we're working on
Still to this day,
still.
like any couple, I mean, it's hard. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Are you done?
No, you can go.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that we're actually very unique in that we like the fact that we work together, and we like the fact that we see each other all the time, both in business mode and in home mode. I do think that that's not for everybody. I
Mm-hmm.
think that the exposure, you know, we hear a lot that some couples can't do that, and I see why. I mean, it does become tough at times, and we're both very passionate and we're both dominant. And so if you can't separate the business versus the personal, it is going to be an issue in our household because
Yeah. And I think something that's really shifted that too is definitely from my perspective has having children has softened me in a lot of ways. And a lot of our employees that have been with me like pre-children and after children would say the same thing, because I have softened a lot and I've become a lot more open, a lot more patient. I mean, anybody with children would tell you that their patience has increased after having children, because it just has to. But I think that naturally has happened in a big way since I've had kids. And also, Sean stepping into the CEO role almost 2 years ago now has also majorly shifted our relationship, where I am now the one supporting his decisions a lot more, right? Because I think that's what we were missing before. It's not that he didn't want to support my decisions, it's just that naturally his masculinity like was pushing towards having his own opinion, and now I can step down a lot, which has been really nice just with having, I mean, I birthed 4 children in 5 years. So that was a lot. But yes, overall, I think us working together and intertwining our lives works really nicely and works really well. And I'm sure we'll get a lot more into that. Do you feel like there's a work Sean and a work, do you
no,
feel like there's a work Sean and a home Sean?
no, I don't. I mean, I think, what I would say to that is in the beginning, we had no kids. We talked about work all the time. We would obviously talk about work at the breakfast table. We talk about work at dinner.
Mhm.
We go on vacations and still talk about work because like
Still work.
that's what it was about. I mean, it was
Building the
about
business.
building the business, and we worked a ton. You can't lose sight of the fact that in the beginning of a business, you are not off. There is no off time. It is all on time, and
Hmm.
so that's what we did. And so we did personal and professional together, and it just revolved around work. I mean, we did do date nights, we did do movies, we did, read books and watch series to kind of break that up, but it was mostly about work in the beginning. And then when you start having kids, that definitely shifts, because now you have your whole world changes. Your routine changes, your mentality changes. You're now not just supporting yourself, you're supporting this brand new being. And so, yes, everything in you does change, and it's no longer just about the business, it's about the family element. And so I think that the dynamic, like you said, has shifted with us being just business partners and married, to now we have a family and a business. And as we've had more kids, the dynamic has even changed even more,
Hmm.
because now we don't just have one person we're worried about. Now we have four that we're trying to make sure is happy, healthy, fed,
Good people.
good people off to school. And then we still have the business that's growing. And so I think the dynamic continues to shift. I believe if I would do it again, I would do it exactly the same way, in terms of working with you and being partners with you throughout the whole way. And so I don't think that there's, I'm very grateful for what we've been through together.
Yeah, so am I. And I don't think, I agree with you. I don't think there's an off switch that we can just have. I do think there's tactics that we can disconnect better from the business. Like, I do a really good job at leaving my phone, somewhere when I get home that's not around the kids. That's something that we're working on with Sean. And he definitely has room for improvement there. But I think there's a lot of tactics to disconnect better. And I also think the kids just naturally pull you into a different direction. Like, my 5 year old is not interested in knowing about my work day. She's interested in playing. And, I want to talk about her day and what she did that was fun that day. So I think that's been a really nice pull for us too. And there's other things that we're into too. Like, we're big on travel. We're big on learning other cultures. We're big on seeing other architectural cities. There's things that we really like that also just pull us away from the business. But Sean's right. In the beginning, when you're building a business, I think you have to know that you're going to be connected to that business all the time. Otherwise, in our instance, I didn't see another way for it to be successful, because like, we didn't have capital and funding to start hiring people right away. I think maybe if you're starting a business where you have a lot of funding or a lot of backing and you can hire the right people right away, great. You can have more of a balance. But when you're starting a business as like a solopreneur, you have to put your everything into the business. And timing for us worked out really well, because I was young. I'm still young. We were young, when we started the business. And I have a lot of energy still. And I had a lot of energy I could devote to the business. So, and then, now we split our energies between kids and business and everything else. Like, everything else just comes secondary to that.
At Skelly Build, what problem did you see was an issue and that you wanted to solve in the construction industry?
I think the basic issue that I was looking to solve in the construction industry is communication processes. So, and Sean, you can go more into what those look like in the company, but like I touched on from the very beginning, the necessities are obviously good quality craftsmanship, and that's kind of where it ends sometimes with construction. So I was interested in really making sure the client experience was elevated, and that's why I was encouraged to start and motivated to start Skelly Build, because I thought there was a lot of room for improvement there.
I agree. And I would add that the problem that you see in construction is it's very old school. It just has not embraced the technology. It has not embraced, like you said, communication. And so I think, when you go through a renovation yourself, there's a lot of like, well, why doesn't this happen, right? Why don't I get updated more? Why don't I know the price of the job? Why don't I know the schedule? Why is the timeline not making sense? And I think what we did is we put ourselves in the client's position, and we wrote down those questions, and we thought, how can we solve this? And I think that's what we've done, is we've solved some major historical issues, like communication, like price, like timeline. So that's what I would say we solved.
This is a great question. What impressed you about what I was building before you joined in?
Yeah, I mean, I think a woman-owned construction company is very powerful in the city of Austin. And it was very obvious that in the beginning, you know, your referral partners were designers, and designers are typically women. You're obviously a woman. Clients making decisions are typically women. And so it was very much like a woman, 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 let's go, let's get this thing built and let's grow. And that caught on quickly. And so the scale went from, you know, the first year was obviously very small, but then the second year, third year, fourth year, the momentum was drastic in terms of our brand and the referrals and the jobs getting bigger and the complexity of the jobs. And then when you have jobs, you get subs, and because subs talk to subs and they've got people they know that they like to work with. And so your sub level increases. And so it just kind of builds, the momentum continues. So to me, I was really impressed with the woman-owned construction and the market of Austin really getting behind that and making a successful business. And
Yeah, people were really responsive to a women-owned construction firm because they really saw the needs, especially if they had gone through a project prior and had an experience that they were looking for more. They really connected with the women-owned and women-centric firm. What do you think were some of the biggest growing pains that we
yeah,
experienced?
so this is, you know, my perspective on growing pains at Skelly. So in the beginning, Diana was everything. She was sales, estimating, project manager, material orderer, warranty, you know, check writer, invoicer. And so my role was I need to get all those processes out of her head and into a system that was repeatable. And so the biggest growing pain was getting her to tell me what the process is for each of those. And so I can remember, you know, when you're when you're busy, you have a new business, you don't really have time for, like, this is kind of like an admin thing, like writing down the to-do list, like the 10 steps you need to do to be a project manager. But so I took shots at it, and then I would go to you and you would say yes or no, or change this, or that's totally wrong, or you're an idiot. And so I would change all of it till we got it. And so the biggest growing pain was trying to get that process out of your head and into a system, and then teach people how to do it, and then make them better at it, so that then we could recreate this great customer experience.
Yeah, and I think you were really good at recognizing that and also recognizing that's where growth was going to begin because companies can't grow if they don't have their processes documented. It's
Amen.
pretty basic, but
And I think
I
everybody knows
definitely,
it,
yeah, not everyone does it
but
though.
not everybody does it. And so that's why we're unique, is because I was not the technician, Diana was the technician, but I had enough insight to say, let's get this on paper and let's make it repeatable, and let's make it a great experience that anybody can come in if they want and thrive and be successful.
So the next segment, we are going to do rapid fire questions, which is just quick answers to get to know us a little bit better, something a little bit fun to break the business part of the podcast up. Okay, I'm going to ask Sean first. Favorite way to spend 10 free minutes?
I'd say listening to Audible.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Got a lot of books on there. I believe, you know, one of our core values at Skelly Build is lifelong learning, and I truly believe that. And so I am always learning about whether it's health or business or personal or something. So I've always got a good podcast going.
Which one are you listening to right now?
Well, I say right now into a book, so that'd be Audible, not podcast. I like Breath, which is the one that you know I'm reading.
Mm.
It's a phenomenal book. Anyways, I'm not trying to
Yeah. Anyways, okay.
get into that.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning person. So, you know, for those who don't know, I get up super early. I get up at 4 a.m. every day. Well, let me say that again. I get up at 4 a.m. Monday to Friday. And that's kind of me time. That's gym, do some red light therapy. I do a lot of stuff before the kids get up so that I'm refreshed and ready to go. And then on the weekends, it's closer to like 5:20.
So late. First job you ever had?
The first job I ever had, a buddy of mine started a business mulching. So we were in Houston. It was super hot. We decided it was a good idea to. My dad had this Sea-Doo trailer, but he didn't have a Sea-Doo, and so we built this trailer out of the Sea-Doo trailer so that we could go get 1 yard of mulch from a mulch yard and then go spread it around someone's house or a business. And so for the summer, in 100 and something degrees and humidity of Houston, that was the first business.
What is your superpower?
My superpower is passion. My background is different. I am dyslexic. I do have ADHD, but with that comes a lot of superpowers. I'm very passionate, and when I get passion behind something, I can just focus on it and not stop until it's completed.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. What song gets you hyped before a big meeting? It's the last question.
I don't even want to answer this one. Golly, I really like NF. He's to me somebody who's upbeat. He's got some great lyrics, great songs. So really anything by him.
Yeah, cool. Okay, now my turn.
All right. What's the most Austin thing about you?
This is a hard one. I was like, please don't pull that. What is the most Austin thing about me? I think there's a lot of Austin stuff about us, honestly. I think our wellness journey is constantly being adjusted and added to. So Sean touched on this. Working out, red light. There's certainly a lot of, acupuncture, a lot of Eastern or traditional practices that I incorporate into my weekly routines that make me feel a lot better. So I would just say taking advantage of all of the non-traditional medicine options in addition to...
Okay. I'm going to ask you the ones you didn't ask me.
Okay.
What's a trend you refuse to participate in?
Well, this is definitely controversial, but I do not have Facebook or Instagram on my phone. And I deleted both of those apps after we had our first kid because I noticed that I was spending a lot of time scrolling. It was also COVID. It was 2020, and there was a lot of confusing information in the world. And I felt like I was digesting too much of it. So I decided to eliminate those two things. And it's actually really something I encourage friends to do when they're feeling really overwhelmed, because there's a lot of information to digest. And for me, digesting it all the time is not healthy. So I'm happy that I don't participate in that trend, although I know that it's pretty intense.
What is your superpower?
Oh, okay. That's the same one.
I know. It's a good one.
I think I probably have a lot of superpowers.
You want me to answer it or you
No,
answer it? You're looking
no.
at me like you want me to answer it. I got it for you. It's honesty and being blunt.
I think I'm in like a nicer way to say that is I give and I receive a lot of clarity. My answers are very clear, and it doesn't mean that I won't change my opinion or I can't be adjusted in any way, but I'm very clear in my answers, and when I say something, that's how I feel. And it's not in an emotional way, but I know that for me, I know it makes our relationship a lot easier. It makes all my relationships a lot easier because they know that they are getting what I say. I don't really hold anything in, which can also be intense.
What's one thing you wish every homeowner knew before starting a renovation?
I think this is a basic answer, but I wish homeowners, and it's hard to gather this information, but there's a big difference between levels of contractors, and there's a big difference between A+ subs and A- subs and B+ subs and B- subs, and same thing for their teams. There's a difference. There's all different levels that you can be purchasing, and I think we say this all the time, but we're not a good firm for an investor to hire because our subs are 2A plus and our team is 2A plus. But we're really good. We're perfect for when you're looking for a more luxury experience with a really nice craftsmanship product. So really do your research on what you're looking for throughout the experience and the product in the end, because there will be massive differences.
Now that you've learned a little bit about us, let's learn a little bit about what we've learned this month. This section is consistent with every episode and keeps the show grounded in real life leadership development. So today we're going to talk about a variety of things, including people, systems, leadership, and ourselves. So I'll just go ahead and ask you, what is a leadership lesson that stood out to you this month?
Do you know your answer on this one? Should I ask you first?
You can.
Okay, I think a leadership lesson that stood out to me this month but consistently stands out to me is just clear communication. And we talk a lot about that, but when I talk with a lot of other business owners, they have a lot of thoughts going on in the background. And my first question is always, well, have you communicated that to that person? And Sean and I are really good about when we pick up the call and call the other one about something that we're not clear on or not understanding, but it was from a different one of our employees. We say, well, call them. Like, you need to redirect and you need to call them and you need to get really clear with them instead of gathering the information from me, even though I was CC'd on the email or even though I was part of the meeting. It's just always getting the clearest and most direct answer from the person that you need it from, because so much can be muddied when it moves from one person to the next, and it will just be much more effective and efficient if you just go directly to the source. And that's something that we're always working on, but I know that we're way better about it than we were 5 years ago. Like, there's not any background talk and we just say, we'll call that person or get clarity on what you're looking for. What's a leadership lesson that stood out to you this month?
So Diana, myself, and Josh Olson, our COO, spent 2 days in a conference room this month talking about the future. And it is an annual process we go through where we think what happened over the last 12 months, what is our plan for the next 12 months. We redirect our 3-year goals to their new goals, and we reestablish our 10-year target. And so, things like write down your processes seem so obvious, but they're so important. Things like getting away from the day-to-day and managing your business are so obvious, but they're so important. And I think we all got away from that 2 days refreshed, refocused, excited. And I think that as leaders, we need to continue to do that, because it not only benefits us, it benefits our team. They get direction as to where we want to go and how we're going to get there and the steps needed to get there. And so to me, the leadership lesson would be that 2-day offsite.
Yeah, so block off a couple days from your calendar. We had a facilitator, which is highly recommended, but block off a couple days, make them quiet, and make them only about future goals and ideas, because otherwise you don't really know where you're going. What was a challenge for you this month?
My challenge is the feedback I got from my team at the 2-day offsite, which is that I need to hear out people more.
Specifically, sometimes me.
Again, I talked about my passion, and when I get behind something I'm very passionate about, and it does take an army to change that. And so that is why I really believe in how we do things and us, and I have a vision as to how it's going to be executed, and I have a belief behind it. And so getting in the way of that passion means that it's kind of like a threat. And so hearing things that I think may block us and our client focused nature in our operation, I kind of don't listen to. And so I do need to get better at opening my ears, even though I have a decision, because as you've mentioned, everybody else has great ideas and I need to hear them.
Yeah, we've created a team of very opinionated people, which is great because you want people to share their opinions and it moves things forward. But sometimes Sean can't listen to them because he does feel blocked. But the integrator just described Sean as a seagull and said that he flies in, shits all over everything, and then flies right back out. Which Sean very much connected with, actually,
so
because
true.
It's very accurate.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It's brilliant. And it wasn't fully in a negative way, but the description was basically, and that's actually very common in like leadership or ownership, is you have a lot of big ideas. You've done your research on why those big ideas are going to work. But then when you're listening to people in a room, even though you already know your decision, and this comes also with being ADHD, is sometimes you do have to take people's opinions into account. And I think that that's something that we're working on.
I did appreciate that seagull analogy because I felt like I was understood.
Okay.
All right. What was your biggest challenge in the last month?
I think my biggest challenge, which people always ask me about, and I do think it's decently relatable, is ownership of a business and being a mom. Because I am having a lot of people, or a lot of my friends are like in the earlier days of being a mom. And we have a 5.5-year-old. She's not that old, but they're in the early days of entrepreneurship and being a mom. And there's a lot of struggles with that. So, my first advice always is to outsource and get help. And that's in like really basic ways. Like, for example, getting a cleaning company once a week or twice a month, because that's super time consuming and your time is better spent working on your business during those hours. Or, of course, like getting maybe some part-time help with your baby, even though it might feel early on, but being okay with outsourcing certain things early on is what will make your business to continue to grow. And if you're okay with just it staying where it is, that's fine too. But if you want it to grow, you have to outsource things, because you can't do it all and then also become a mom on top of it and do that all too, because that's a lot. Being a mom to 4 kids is easily a full-time job. Okay, so lastly, we're going to talk a little bit just about us and our family. And this really reinforces Skelly Build's people first philosophy, and is one of the very common topics that people do bring up when they get us one-on-one or in groups or on panels or whatever. There's always some kind of family question too, because we do have what is now considered a large family. So we can dive into that. So something that Sean and I did recently, which he can list off, is we actually created a list of family core values, which is something we also have business core values, which we'll probably go into in another podcast. But the core values for our family specifically, do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, we can. I think the journey of having a business has taught us to have some type of system behind running a business. And we have chose EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, which we've loved. And we've been in it. This is our 2nd year now. And that has taught us to get everybody on the same page, moving in the same direction, which I think the company has really appreciated. All of our people have really appreciated. But then my thought was, well, shoot, why would a couple not do that? If we are committed to each other for life, let's get on the same page as like where we're going and how we're going to get there, and what are your big aspirations and what do you want to do in 15 years, and right? So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I took the same strategy of, well, let's get on the same page as to where we're going and how we're going to get there. So we started with our core values, and funny enough, we had already come up with these core values.
We had.
And we just had never called them core values. or something. I don't know. It was like in a note
Yeah,
we had.
most people are surprised. Sean and I actually meet typically once a month with what we would call meeting of the minds, where it was just a meeting with Sean and I, high level business, diving into personal goals, which has been really helpful for us to do because a lot of people set business goals, but they don't sit down with their spouse and set personal goals. And so, and it was just like a coffee or a lunch. Like it was always during the business day. So it was kind of more of like a goal and mindset meeting
Yes.
versus talking about whatever.
And yeah, and in that meeting we talked about everything. We talked about, this year goals from the business standpoint, this year goals from a personal standpoint, travel, family, um, what we wanted to accomplish, what we were focused on personally and professionally. So it's been great. And during that time, we wrote down 5 core values, which is funny enough because that's how many core values you need in EOS. And so those core values are: number 1, family first; number 2, be respectful; number 3, always keep trying, do not give up; number 4, life is limitless; and number 5, take care of your body, health and fitness wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, those are really the 5 core values that we practice every day with our kids and just show them by action, really, and try and teach them with and through.
And I appreciate you because I got an early Christmas present, which is the family core values on a very
Board.
nice framed picture frame that's going to go up in our house.
Sean is very value and goal oriented, which is great. So,
How do we have 4 kids in 5 years and a successful business?
well, the answer for the kids' perspective is me. That was
Okay.
me.
Okay. So talk about it. So what do you do that's different that people can take away from being able to balance a large family and kids? And I mean the sleepless nights and the breastfeeding and everything. I mean, how do we do it? How did we do it?
Well, first of all, having an incredibly supportive spouse is number one. And I think, the traditions of men and women has gotten so confusing sometimes, but I think we've reset that a lot and we continue to figure out like what that looks like for you and I. And obviously I take on most of the children responsibilities because we've set it that way, and you take on most of the business responsibilities. So from the basic level, I think it goes back to really setting what it looks like what I'm going to do every day and what it looks like what you're going to do. And that's really simple. Like I plan all the birthday parties. I do most of the sick visits. I do the lunches, but you're managing a lot more on the business front. So feeling like it's equal there, I think has been really important for me and has helped me through all of my pregnancy and postpartum journeys, because obviously those are not easy.
I'd like to add to that.
Yeah, add to it.
So I think the same reason why we're successful in business is the same reason why we're successful at home.
Yeah,
and
it's
that
really
is
beautiful.
because we break the traditional roles. You started the business, right? You were very involved in the business. That's breaking a traditional role. I at home break a traditional role because I do a lot more than I think the traditional role does.
You do, yeah.
And so I think we are a true partnership through and through in the business because you're more involved, and at home because I'm more involved, which is why we can essentially, it's not 1 times 1, it's exponentially better when we're both bringing our own skills into whether it's business or personal.
Yeah.
And so I think it is the same reason why we're successful in business, we're successful at home, and that's because of us.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I mean it's finding the right partner, which is easier said
I
than
agree.
done
A
because
freaking men.
you don't know. And we've been through like so many shifts in life, and having the team aspect of us is what's gotten us through everything, because we're always on each other's team at the end of the day. And we're also always willing to sit there and listen at the end of the day. And I can say, hey, I was feeling overwhelmed with this today. And you could say, okay, well, I could help a little bit in this way. And then I feel better about it the next day. But I think it's like listening, rebalancing constantly. Like I would say we balance things like every 3 to 4 months. Like it's a constant evaluation of, well, do we need to change this or should we do this? And there's so many different shifts and transitions with kids, even like even our oldest entered elementary school. So that's a shift. We had another kid this year. That's a shift. Like, so it's constantly reevaluating like what we're doing for each other to make sure the other one is feeling healthy and grounded.
Yeah, I agree. What is harder, running a business or a family?
I always say running a business has been harder because our kids are so young, and this could totally shift. I could shift my answer and change it later, but our kids are so young. We can control so much of what they see and do and eat and sleep right now that, and they're toddlers, so there's an aspect of not listening, but right now we can control so much of what they ingest, that is not as challenging to me as the business part, because we're working with adults who have their own, everything, opinions, influences, different parents. So I think the business has been harder. What's your answer?
I agree. I think starting a business is very hard. I mean, it is a challenge through and through. To start from nothing to be successful is very hard.
Yeah.
Raising a kid is very hard too, by the way.
Yeah.
I just feel like the emotional tolls that we went through the business were harder, with where's the next sale coming from,
This cost a lot of money. This was a
challenges,
really big mistake.
mistakes, client challenges. I think that we've had more sleepless nights from the business and more stress from the business than the stress from kids.
Yeah.
And I think that in our journey of business, we figured out that we need to find experts to help and guide. And so we did that with our family, right? We reached out and found experts to help us through sleep training and, getting them to eating and all that. And so we learned a valuable lesson in business that we then translated from the home life, and that helped it be easier than learning that lesson if we would have missed that lesson in business.
Yeah, that's true. Our oldest, Atlas, thinks we build homes, and she knows that whenever she walks into our home, she's like, oh yeah, you and Dad did this. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. And when we've done a lot of personal projects. We've renovated our condo. We've combined units. They've walked through a lot of our construction stages for our personal jobs. We don't bring them to our client jobs, but they've walked through a lot of stages of that. Like when I look through Time Hop, it very frequently comes up that we're at a construction site with our kids. That is for us. So they do have, she has the understanding that we do that. And then our second child, Cleo, she's almost 4. She understands that we build things, but she's also very architecturally driven, and she's incredibly impressive. Like she uses Magnetiles almost every single day and builds this amazing, like architecturally very interesting building and she's so excited to show us. Like, it's interesting that she has that innately in her, and that's been fun to watch. And then Bond is 2, no idea. Nova is 5 months, she's just a smiling little noodle.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I would agree. I do think Atlas knows we build homes, and I do think that Cleo could definitely be an architect because her buildings are phenomenal and they're all different. And I would just build the same. I mean, I don't have that creativity. She's so creative. And she comes up with the craziest
stuff.
Buildings. It's amazing.
It's incredible.
Well, thank you, listeners, for listening to Beyond the Build. This has been an exciting first-time experience for us where, of course, we've made mistakes, we've laughed, we've joked, we'll adapt, and we'll do better. So we appreciate you listening to us and hearing our insights and hopefully learning about family, life, business, or both. We do invite you to submit questions. There's a link in our bio. Please follow us on social and share the episode. We also we'll continue to do this every month, and so look out for more of our episodes in the future. Thanks so much.